The Iranian Revolution has begun. Iranians are rising up to free themselves from the oppressive regime of the so-called religious leaders, who are nothing more than criminals who seized power with the support of France, the UK, and the CIA. The West placed its bet on the wrong leader with Khomeini. The Shah was installed by the UK and the US to safeguard their interests in Iranian oil. Over time, power went to his head, and he began to proclaim himself emperor, forgetting who had placed him on the throne. The UK, the US, and France eventually orchestrated his downfall. However, the Western powers made a grave mistake by backing Khomeini, a religious zealot and longtime adversary of the Shah. Their hopes for lucrative contracts under Khomeini quickly evaporated as he took power and began a reign of oppression, torture, and murder. Khomeini's inner circle lived in luxury, wielding their power like monarchs or fascist rulers. The Shah, too, was a modern-day tyrant who used his secret police, Savak, to torture and kill thousands. Yet, under his rule, Iran was a more advanced and modern nation, open to Western values. We must remember that the Shah, despite his narcissistic megalomania and dangerous tendencies, was overthrown for a reason. The Shah was our tyrant, replaced by the religious zealots who followed. The Iranian Revolution, a struggle for true liberation. As the Iranian Revolution unfolds, a wave of defiance sweeps across the nation, driven by a populace yearning to overthrow an oppressive regime masquerading as religious authority. These leaders, who seized power with the clandestine support of France, the UK, and the CIA, are little more than criminals cloaked in piety. The West's choice to back Khomeini now stands as a monumental blunder. The Shah's rise and fall. The Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was installed by the UK and the US in the early 1950s, primarily to secure Western access to Iran's vast oil reserves. This intervention was epitomized by the 1953 CIA-orchestrated coup that ousted the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. The Shah's reign initially promised modernization and economic progress, but over time, power consumed him. Declaring himself emperor, he lost sight of his benefactors and his people. The lavishness of his rule and his autocratic tendencies alienated many Iranians. By the late 1970s, the Shah's regime faced severe internal strife. Economic difficulties, rampant corruption, and a brutal secret police force, Savak, which tortured and murdered dissenters, fueled public discontent. The tipping point came when the UK, the US, and France, seeing the Shah as a liability, quietly facilitated his exit, paving the way for a new power to emerge. The West's miscalculation. Enter Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a fervent cleric and longtime adversary of the Shah. Initially, Western powers saw Khomeini as a potential stabilizing force who could protect their interests. They failed to grasp the depth of his anti-Western ideology and underestimated his appeal to the Iranian masses, who were desperate for change. Khomeini's ascent to power in 1979 quickly shattered Western illusions. Far from being a pliable leader, he established a theocratic regime that proved to be even more repressive and hostile. The hopes for lucrative contracts and a cooperative government evaporated as Khomeini's regime began a brutal crackdown on dissent. Executions, torture, and suppression of political opponents became the new norm. Khomeini's inner circle enjoyed opulent lifestyles, reminiscent of the monarchies or fascist regimes of old, while the general population suffered under the iron fist of clerical rule. A comparison of tyrannies. Despite the Shah's autocratic rule, his regime did bring a degree of modernization and openness to Western values. Iran under the Shah saw advancements in women's rights, education, and economic development. However, these achievements were overshadowed by his oppressive tactics and megalomania. Savak's terror created an atmosphere of fear and resentment, contributing to the revolutionary fervor that ultimately led to his downfall. In contrast, Khomeini's rule eradicated much of the progress made during the Shah's era. Theocratic rule imposed severe restrictions on personal freedoms, especially for women, and reversed many of the Shah's modernizing policies. The regime's focus shifted to religious orthodoxy and political purges, plunging the nation into a new form of despotism. A lesson from history. As Iranians rise again, it is crucial to understand the historical context of their struggle. The revolution is not merely against the current regime, but a continued fight for true self-determination and liberation from decades of foreign manipulation and domestic tyranny. The West's involvement, from backing the Shah to supporting Khomeini, has had lasting repercussions. The ongoing revolution is a testament to the resilience and spirit of the Iranian people. It serves as a reminder that foreign powers must tread carefully in the complex political landscapes of other nations. As history unfolds, the hope is that Iran will find a path to genuine freedom and democracy, free from the shadows of past and present oppressors.